On March 14, 2025, former President Donald Trump stepped back into the spotlight, this time at the Justice Department headquarters in Washington, D.C. The setting was unusual, but the tone was familiar. Delivering a speech that echoed his campaign rallies, Trump unleashed a torrent of grievances, accusations, and policy pronouncements. The event served as a stark reminder of the divisions that continue to plague American politics. It also raised serious questions about the future of justice and the rule of law in the United States. The speech, coming just months after his return to the White House, was seen by many as a blatant attempt to exert control over the very institution that had investigated him for years. Trump, never one to shy away from a fight, used the platform to attack his political opponents. He also took aim at the media and what he called the deep state. This was not a policy speech. This was not a unifying speech. This was a campaign speech delivered from an office that demands, at the very least, a veneer of impartiality. For those who hoped that Trump might moderate his tone after his 2024 victory, the speech was a rude awakening. The former president seemed to relish the opportunity to settle old scores and air his grievances. The speech left many Americans wondering if the divisions that have come to define American politics in recent years could ever be healed. A significant portion of Trump's speech was dedicated to airing his grievances about past investigations into his conduct. He repeatedly described himself as a victim of a witch hunt and a hoax. His language was often inflammatory, laced with personal attacks and accusations of corruption against his perceived enemies. Trump reserved particular ire for the investigations into Russian interference in the 2020 election, and his alleged attempts to overturn the results of that election. He dismissed these investigations as politically motivated attacks. He offered no evidence to support his claims. Trump's rhetoric, while familiar to those who followed his presidency and subsequent campaigns, was nonetheless jarring in the context of the Justice Department. Trump's attempts to portray himself as a victim rang hollow to many. His critics pointed out that he had repeatedly abused his power while in office. They argued that he was now seeking to evade accountability for his actions. The speech did little to dispel the perception that Trump was more interested in settling scores than in upholding the law. Trump's speech also included pointed criticisms of specific actions taken by the Justice Department during the Biden administration. He reserved particular scorn for the investigations into his handling of classified documents after leaving office and his role in the January 6th Capitol riot. He repeatedly claimed that these investigations were politically motivated and lacking in merit. The former president's claims about the investigations were often misleading or demonstrably false. In the case of the classified documents investigation, for example, Trump failed to mention that the FBI had obtained a search warrant for his Mar-a-Lago residence after his lawyers falsely claimed that all classified materials had been returned to the National Archives. Trump's selective outrage regarding the Justice Department investigations into his conduct was notable. He seemed particularly incensed by investigations that directly threatened him legally. Other investigations, even those targeting his close associates, received less attention. Section 4. A department reshaped Trump's changes to justice. Since returning to office, Trump has wasted no time in reshaping the Justice Department in his own image. He has appointed loyalists to key positions, including naming Pam Bondi as Attorney General and installing Kash Patel in a senior role at the FBI. These appointments have raised concerns about the politicization of law enforcement. In addition to making new appointments, Trump has also purged the Justice Department of officials he viewed as disloyal. He has fired prosecutors who investigated him during the Biden administration and scrutinized FBI agents involved in the investigations into Russian interference in the 2020 election. These actions have further undermined the independence of the Justice Department. Trump's actions have been met with alarm by many former Justice Department officials, both Democrats and Republicans. They argue that he is eroding the norms and traditions that have long governed the department. They fear that he is turning the Justice Department into a tool to be used against his political opponents. Section 5. Policy through a glass. Darkly vague pronouncements on crime and immigration. While much of Trump's speech focused on his personal grievances and attacks on his opponents, he did touch on a few policy areas. As with his previous speeches, he emphasized issues like border security, violent crime, and the fentanyl crisis. However, his pronouncements on these issues were often vague and lacking in detail. On immigration, Trump reiterated his commitment to building a wall along the US-Mexico border. He also promised to crack down on illegal immigration, though he provided no specifics on how he planned to do so. On crime, Trump pledged to be tough on criminals and to restore law and order to American cities. Again, he offered few concrete proposals. Trump's pronouncements on policy were light on specifics and heavy on rhetoric. It remains to be seen how or if these pronouncements will be translated into actual policy. However, the speech made clear that Trump intends to govern in much the same way he did during his first term.